What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P, Shannon White here with another episode of the Steelers Global Perspective. Our final one for this week, but we are coming at you with a couple, playing catch-up, if you will. We talked a lot about offense in the segments that we've done this week, Shannon, and I wanted to talk about defense because, I think, you and I like talking about the defense probably even more than we do the offense. We could talk about how the defense has been going and the quality of the defense, but then the injuries of the defense, for hours. I think everyone sort of knows where we're sitting at going into week 5, and it was really disappointing seeing Highsmith's injury, in that Chargers game, and I could see how disappointed he was when he walked off the field. I could tell that wasn't a short-term situation. Then it looked like Herbig could have a problem coming out of the week 4 game against the Colts. The good news is that as the practice injury report, practice participation and injury report that came out about an hour before we started recording this, so this is the Thursday injury report, is that Herbig was limited. That's a good thing. I was worried that he'd be out. But there's also been obviously a number of injuries within the secondary. They've brought in, guys like Terrell Edmonds. I guess the defense has done a terrific job up until the Colts game, which they were kind of primed for a stinker in a way. I kind of felt that through the Chargers game. I was like, they might get through the Colts. I actually thought they'd get through the Colts and the stinker would come against the Cowboys. So I'm actually kind of glad that the stinker came. It's not good to lose to an AFC opponent, but I would rather them rock up at home against the Cowboys and get things back on track. And I will say, I went to the game I went to before, the first game I ever went to with the Steelers, which was the game before this one, was 5 years ago against the Bills on that Sunday night where the Bills beat them and got into the playoffs, and the Steelers, went home when Duck played and Mason played. I would say there was a bigger atmosphere and a bigger excitement from Steeler fans at the Chargers game because it was opening game of the season and they were 2-0 than what was at that Bills game. It seemed more important. It just seemed like a better vibe.
Yeah.
And you got to wonder how that rubs off on players as well. I feel like, and that Chargers game was brutal. That there was the hits, you vividly hear the hits that were happening and see it and the contact. And so I can't say I was deeply surprised to see them go away to Indianapolis and not get the win. But what I didn't like was how all over the shop, to use an Australian turn of phrase, they were. I just, the first half, they just sat there. We were at a sports bar, and my wife will tell anyone. I was just sitting there going, "What the F is going on? What is this? No one's making a tackle." Minka wasn't actually playing that well at that point. The linebackers, I don't know what planet Queen was on. That's for the defensive. I'm not going to get some defensive line, but I guess with all these things, it's not like all these things. All the listeners, this is not a surprise to anyone. But I guess heading into week 5 and beyond, and they can't help injuries. Injuries are going to strike, and we talked about this on the offensive side. But after going through the first 4 weeks, I guess, and looking ahead, at least to the next 4 weeks to get through to the bye period, because then you're going to get guys starting to come back healthy. There's not as many of those long-term injuries. You can look at the second half of the season where there's a lot of divisional games. But how are you feeling about the defense over the next 4 weeks and what their prospects could be as they build toward the end of the season? Because you can't fault them on the start that they've had, but there were some massive concerns on the weekend against the Colts.
Well, it was a typical Tomlin trap game stinker. They come in specifically on defense to stop Avery Richardson and to cause him to make mistakes, throw into coverage, get some interceptions. They moved Porter away from playing man. They put him in a zone, and then they would drop him back late into the throwing lane. And the first play of the game, if he would have timed his leap better or his drop a little deeper, he could have had an interception. Instead, he gave up a 30-some yard completion. They picked on Porter.
Yeah,
most people stay away from Porter, but he gave up 5 receptions for 90-some yards and a touchdown. And that's his worst game I've ever seen him play in the pros. None of them were ready to play because they all had this plan. Even their pass rush at first was to contain Richardson.
Well, that's the thing. The pass rush was non-existent. Like,
yeah, but if you watch, they was really trying to stay in lanes. So when he went out, okay, let's look at this. Missed opportunities. Porter missed the first play of the game. Fumble that was forced on a scramble that Queen couldn't recover. Dropped interception in the end zone by Joey Porter Jr.
Yep.
I mean, so many missed opportunities.
Yep.
On top of a couple of bad calls and different things. But even with all that, they had a chance because Fields brought them back. But they never could get the big stop when they needed to. And then at the end, even when they did, they'd let too much time go off. But to me, I think sometimes guys believe their press clippings and they're like, well, we're just going to keep getting better every week. But Deshaun Elliott said after the game that some of the practice habits is not what he's used to, and he wasn't happy with some of the practice habits of some of the players. Now, I've heard that 3 years in a row, Matty.
Yeah.
3 years in a row. And this is a guy coming from another team, another high-level team, and he's coming in and he's like, don't like it. Well, now, where does that go? Does that fall on Hayward? Because he's the leader on the defense.
So you beat me exactly where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Because outside of TJ Watt, and I think it's hard for Minka because the defensive backs are just rotate in and out every year, like in poor Minka.
Yeah, but he was going to fight Johnson last year. I mean, Minka will get him.
Yeah, so I'm not going to slight Minka. But this Hayward captain of the defense thing, I felt average about. Now, I wanted them to re-sign him. I'm a massive Cameron Hayward fan. But Cameron
Hayward playing well. He's playing well. Yes.
He's not the captain of the defense. He might be on paper. He might have the captain's badge, but they don't wear him on the jersey. But well, put it this way. They lost this week. And everyone is entitled to do what they want to do. You know, I got a day job. I do this on the side, whatever. But why am I getting notifications about podcasts this week with Simone Biles and how good, I don't know. Like, I hear a lot of talk about Hayward, and you know what? It's funny you brought him up because when I was walking my dog the first day after we got him back, after I got back from my holiday this week, I was walking my dog and I was thinking about this. If you interviewed the Steelers right now and you interviewed Cam Hayward would be like, look, didn't play well on the weekend, but we're 3-1. We're getting better. We're doing 3-1. Maybe no people didn't expect us to be 3-1. And I'd sit there and go, well, I call bullshit on that because the one loss that you had basically undid a lot of the good, the good feeling, the good work, the good perspective on what you did on the defense. So I think you've nailed it on the head. We can't continue to blame this on Mike Tomlin. This isn't Mike. The Steelers win too many games for it to be on Mike Tomlin. But I tell you what, I have always had criticisms of Terrell Austin, and he is in control of the training for that defense. Last year, people might say, but what about the offense? Last year, they had Matt Canada who couldn't even figure out how to use Calvin Austin and admitted it, right?
Yeah.
That's not on Tomlin. I don't think, and I stick to this, and people can call me a Tomlin lover, but I do not think that Matt Canada was a Tomlin hire. I don't think that's the case because the way he pulled the pin on that, and the way that he to and froed on it, if it was a Tomlin hire, he would have pulled on the pin on that earlier. But the practice thing is an interesting comment from Deshaun Elliott, who I said it before the season. He was my favorite free agent pickup. He has had a terrific start to the year.
He's been awesome.
Incredible. And my mind, as I said before the Chargers game in the little quick preview I did, my mind on having Minka, Terrell Edmonds, and Deshaun Elliott on the field at the same time, it's like, bring it the heck on. Let's get physical. But the practicing is a concern. And I do think, and it's difficult because I love TJ and I want TJ to play out his career here for the Steelers. But TJ's not a vocal leader. And Minka's not really Minka might be wanting to fight Johnson, but I don't. Minka's known as a quiet guy.
Hmm.
I think they're missing a vocal leader, and I think it's they don't have, like, imagine if they had like a Joey Porter Sr. on this team, like someone
Yeah,
razzing
yeah.
them up. Like there's not even Peyton Wilson. Peyton Wilson was shocked that I said like have a good game, right? Like like I just, and maybe I say it was the accent and all that sort of stuff that I've talked about in the comments on that, and we talked about off air. But I don't know. And Queen is a quiet and reserved guy. You see that in the interviews. They've got to tease it. They're gonna have to get someone. And Joey Porter's clearly been told, as he goes through the process, to pull his head and be really respectful, because he's not even as out there as I thought he would be. I just think they're missing.
They don't even have
defense.
a deep.
They play well, but I think when the times get tough, I don't think they've got someone that can rally everyone together.
Yeah.
And it can't be Tomlin all the time.
No, they don't have a Ryan Clark. They don't have a Debo. Somebody that you don't want to. They definitely don't have a Greg Lloyd. They don't have a guy that you don't want to go in the locker room after that stinker.
A Kevin Green.
They don't have it. And, I think there was things that we're talking defense. I was concerned about the defensive line. I think they've exceeded my expectations. I think they've played very well in the defensive line. Linebackers, I'm very high on Peyton Wilson. Like you said, I hate to see Highsmith injured, but Herbig is showing, and they're getting Jeremiah Moon back. He'll get to play his first, hopefully this week.
Well, yeah, that he was on the injury report as well, but he did fully practice with.
So I'm hoping, because this is his first week eligible, but I am very disappointed in Patrick Queen. The reason why is because I think the green dot, and I've talked about it on multiple podcasts. We talked about it. I said he don't need to be the,
and we got slandered in the comments.
He does not need to be the green dot, and that's why you need Roquan Smith. Well, he comes here. They and Tomlin and them are stubborn, and they're like, "Oh, he can do it." Slap it on him, and it ain't working. And of a guy who's an aggressive downhill, instinctual player is being just paralyzed
they
by
might
having
be, in
responsibilities that's not in his wheelhouse.
Then, in fairness, I think it might be a little bit to do with the fact as well. They don't want to put that on Peyton Wilson yet, regardless of what we think Peyton Wilson's IQ is.
He can do it right now.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of things on the field that he's missed as well. But I also think, I said this on one of the shows I did, I think a little bit of the problem with
that's
Queen,
post snap.
Yes.
Pre snap, he's got it. Now post, you have to make a quick decision, and he's hesitant at times, but he's getting better. He is a rookie. But I'm saying pre snap, getting people formation, he can handle that.
Yeah. I do think the secondary is causing problems for Queen on some blown assignments. I feel like I see that on tape. It's very hard to know what they're scheming up on their play, but there are times where, like, you look at a play and there's certain defensive backs where there's two defensive backs on like one wide receiver, and there's someone glaring open, and they've thrown it over Queen, and like the Queen's within earshot, and it's like, well, were you not in the right position, Queen? Like, there's been a few times where I'm like, Queen's been made to look bad, but at the same time, he's not he's not lived up to expectation necessarily. However, I also think that, like, the Steelers, as you said, with the green dot, are asking more of him, and we are only 4 weeks into the season. Like, the bloke can learn the defense, and I don't think it's the easiest defense for someone to be learning with the green dot sitting there, and also being heavily targeted because of the Steelers' pass rush abilities. So I'm not like, oh my God, he needs to be benched right now.
No,
I also think
no.
And I also think the Steelers were secretly, obviously, hoping for a Holcomb Queen starting duo, which would have been awesome. I think Atlanta Roberts has looked good when they've used him.
But he's a downhill run thumper.
And this is the problem, I think this is the problem with Holcomb being out, is you're having to ask a lot more of Kevin ask a lot more of Peyton Wilson, and then you've got 2 downhill runners. But I think the defense will get better.
Oh yeah.
We'll see. This Cowboys game will show it.
I wanted to bring up. I was very shocked that they cut Darius Rush because one of the 4 when you consider Ryan Watts before the injury, 4 Avatar guys, and I know that they had a really good relationship, those 4 guys. So when they somebody asked me on another podcast, said, "What happened with Rush?" I said, "In my opinion, C.J. Henderson happened." I mean, when they signed him, a former top 10 pick, I never heard of him having physical limitations. I heard mental and maturity problems. And so the Steelers might be gambling that being his lack of success, getting released, picked up on the practice squad, maybe it's humbled him.
I actually like CJ.
If they were willing to cut Rush, who was the backup number 2 on the depth chart, then maybe they're already impressed with what they're seeing, because if he could get his maturity situation, taken care of, you got a top 10 pick talent.
Well, and you brought it up well. It's a great point to finish it on. Is that I think I was like quite.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
When I saw that, I was like, "What?" Like, and I was like, "I'm not thinking of the right bloke, because this guy's going to be some other bloke that's come out in the draft the last couple of years." And then I was like, "No, that's like CJ Henderson. No, I think they can turn him around. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
One more I got to mention, because me and you haven't got to talk, but Terrell Edmonds is back, baby. Now, like I said, you understand how much I love the dude.
Yep.
I love that team first concept. There's a guy who leads with, you see him out there working hard and having that right attitude, and it makes you feel bad if you ain't willing to do the same. And to have Deshaun Elliott and then him be the backup, I couldn't ask for no more than that. So I'm thrilled with the safety depth. I love the Beanie is playing well.
Well, yeah, I was going to bring it up with you, Beanie. I want to talk about Beanie. I think we need to give him a couple more games, but I think on one of our segments, I want to have a big discussion about a look at where what he's done to date during the season and where he's going. I think it's a little bit early to do that. But
I think what we can say is I told everybody you're going to like his quickness, his speed, which is much better than Hilton.
Yep.
But you're going to like that he's very Hilton-like in that he's a very good tackler. Now, when he gets an opportunity, he gets the guy down one way or the other. He might be like the Chihuahua, humping your leg, but he makes sure he brings the guy down.
Oh my God, we're gonna have to keep that one. I might have to clip that one. That's
like sing boy, sing.
I love that. Well, I want to wrap up on that note, but that's going to wrap up our show for today for the Pittsburgh Steelers Touchdown Under. I'm Matty P with Shannon White, as always, for the Steelers Global Perspective. Have a good one.